Well, hello everybody. Today we're going to do papercraft, and I am going to attempt to do a hibiscus flower. So for this project I will need a pencil, hot glue gun, a little pad for the hot glue. I have a palette just because we're only using a few colors and we're going to be mixing some. I have little tiny dowels. You could go bigger, you could go longer, but this is all I got. And I've got some paper clips. So your first step, oh, and we also have the paper too. So I just have a kind of a watercolor paper or Bristol board, something that's pliable and durable that I'm going to use for this. So we'll hot glue in a little bit. So I'm just going to move this off to the side. And we also will not need the dowels or the paper clips. So I'm going to move these off to the side. And we're not painting just yet, so I'm going to leave that there. I want to make a pinkish reddish one, and I want to make a yellow one. So if I have enough room, maybe I'll make 3. So we want to start off with the petals, and we want the petals to overlap. And so I'm not going to do just one. I'm going to cut it into 2 different pieces to let it overlap. So I want to create like this wavy sort of, almost looks like butterfly wing. You want to have basically a circle in the middle. It doesn't have to be perfect. And you want to kind of proportionally create these. So I'm going to add another one. I'm going to make that a little wavier. And then I want to add another one over here. All right, so I've got 3, and then I want to make, I should make 2 because they're 5 petal, but it would be good to duplicate this, but I will do the 2. So we'll just start with a circle about the same size, and we'll just create 2 leaves on either side. All right, so eventually we'll poke a hole in the middle and feed these all up. But for now, that's pretty much the template. They kind of look like airplane rotators, but they're not, or a fan, but it's not. So we also want to create a leaf, and I'm just going to create a little stem so that we have that extra paper to work with. And we're just going to do a leaf shape like that. And it'll probably be jaggedy. I'm not quite sure how I'm going to cut that out, but we're going to leave that there for now. And you know what? Let's just go ahead and make another little leaf because we have room on this paper. We'll make it a little smaller. All right, we want to duplicate this at least twice if you're going to make 2 different ones, or keep going. So we'll do it again. We'll just add a circle and another circle and our shape. Shape again. Shape again. All right, so once you have your shapes, we want to go ahead and paint. So we'll start off with the original one, and we'll make the original one yellow. Yellow and orange are the colors we want to use for this. So I want to get my yellow. And I want to get a little tiny bit of red. So we'll leave that there. A little bit of yellow. A little bit of red. That turned out to be a mess. That's awesome. And I want to get a little bit of white in here as well. Alright, so as far as brushes, I'm going to use my handy dandy round big one. I don't know what it is about this brush, but you've probably seen it in a multitude of videos, but it's just tried and true, fills in all kinds of stuff, gives me a point. Yeah. All right, so we want to start off with the yellow, and we're going to paint our leaves. I'm going to make it nice and vibrant yellow. It's okay if you go outside the lines because we can still see our lines or our pencil lines. Go ahead and cross through the middle and just basically paint this whole thing. You want to get a pretty good coating and sort of paint in the direction that the leaves would come out, like from the stem here out. You want to paint it in that direction. And we want to get our other two. So go ahead and paint that. All right, I'm going to leave the leaves for now because that's a different color and I'm not going to deal with that right now. So we'll let that dry, put it off to the side. And I'm going to give my brush a little tiny bit of a cleaning because I want to start working with pink and red, so a completely different color. So moving in with a little bit of white, I'm just going to go ahead and mix it on that plate right here, and a little dab of red to get a pretty pink. And we might mix again, but for this part, we're just going to try to let this stretch. All right, so I have the flower colors and now I want to do a green. So I'm actually going to use a darker green and mix this with a little bit of yellow. So just a darker green. And maybe I'll get a little bit more yellow into this. Alright, so I'm going to take a pretty big scoop of yellow. Let's just do two scoops of yellow, and we'll just do a scoop of green. I'm going to get kind of a lime color. Well, more of a hunter green, I guess. But that's okay, that's a really good base. Alright, so we'll go ahead and paint our leaves. Just basic for now. We'll give it detail later. A little bit of detail. Alright, so we've got our green on there, and we just want to let the paint that we've just put for our flowers and our leaves to just dry. And so we're going to just set this off to the side and let it dry. Alright, we want to start hot gluing our contraption. So I'm going to start off with one and a couple of paper clips. Alright, so maybe we'll use about 3, possibly 4 for each one. But I want to bend this up so it creates a U shape. It does not have to be precisely lined up. You just want to make sure you flatten out the curvy parts of the paper clip. Alright, so we will eventually attach these to our rod or our dowel. And we're going to keep on doing that. And you want to stretch them pretty good, because once you hot glue them, they're quasi-fragile because the glue seal might break. It's just better to bend it all into place so you don't have to move it once it's secure with the glue. Alright, so I've got a couple of these. I want to bend these a little closer to each other. Alright, so we will be making 2, so we want to go ahead and make 2 more. So continue to do what you need to do with your paper clips. Alright, so we've got 3 and 3. We may need more, but we'll just call it equal proportions. So once you're done with this, you want to heat up your hot glue gun, and then we'll secure things into place. I need to actually plug in my hot glue gun, so I'm going to give it a few. Okay, so I've already glued one, and I needed to mount it so that it could dry a little bit better. But basically, to get this, you just want to take 2 of these and make sure that they're bent really, really, really squished. The other one. And one more. Alright, so you want to feed 2, let me twist it a little, you want to feed 2 so that they're opposite. So one lays flat and one lays a little more vertical. So flat and vertical, and hold that at the end. Then take your hot glue gun and just get the ends. Give it a minute to set up. And then we want to add 1 down the middle. Right. A little more glue. And then you want to turn it around and glue it to the end. I'm going in a little bit to take some of that glue. I'm twisting. And then I'm going to add a little bit more on the outside. Let it set up for a little bit. Alright, so once you find your balance and it's not going to droop in the middle, you can go back to the one that you created and maybe open up some of these little metal, well, paper clip really. Alright, that one needs to be a little more secure, so I'm going to get a little glob and let that cure, but I also want to glob the ends. Oh, goodness. Alright, we're going to let this one dry a little bit more because it wasn't super secure in that one area. So I'm just going to set that off. And we'll go ahead and just leave it. Just add the little dots at the end. It'd be nice if they stayed pearls. Alright, towards the base I'm just going to twirl and just wrap around so it gets a little stringy per se. Alright, And we'll just set that down. That's going to be the base eventually. And we'll do the same to this one. We'll add some little dots. Alright, we will probably need the hot glue gun again, but for right now, we're just going to put these off to the side. So I'll start off with the green. And, oh goodness. I'll start off with the green, and I'm going to turn on my light because it's really very dark. Sorry guys. Alright. So I'm going to go into the darker green and just try to create some veins. Alright, well while I'm letting the other ones dry, we'll go ahead and start working on these, the flowers. So I'm going to use the same tiny brush that I used for the leaves. And I'll just make it a little darker than the base color. And I'm just trying to get some little lines going on in here. It will most likely be darker than the base. I'm just fanning it out a little. And we'll just paint the base this color. And we'll do it to the other side. Alright, so I've got some lines in there, and now I'm going to make a lighter pink and add a little bit of highlight, mostly to the tips. So if you were curious as to what brush I'm using, I am using a chiseled brush, so when I do my lines I'm using the skinny side, and then when I fill in I'm using the thicker side. And you can go outside the lines for this because we're clipping them out anyway. Alright, so we're going to clean our brush and do the yellow next. And the yellow I'm going to use orange, but I have to make that. So I'm just going to add a little touch of yellow to my darker mixture, maybe 2 scoops of that, so that I have an orange color. And I'll just do, well, and we'll just go with it. right, so we want to make a lighter version of this. So we are going to add a little touch of yellow to our lighter pink. And maybe just a touch more white. We just want it lighter. It's kind of like a cream yellow. I'm going to add a scoop of yellow to the previous mix that we had before. Maybe a dab of green and a little bit of white. I want this to be a little more lime, so I'm going to add a little bit more yellow. It's a pretty color. Alright, so we're just going to add some lines going through. And cover up a little bit of the darker green, it should show through. Oop. Well, that was a lot, but I'm okay with that. Alright, I'm going to let those dry, and we'll go to the next one. And we're just going to add that little bit of yellow. Alright, so we want to do the back side, but we really can't do that because we need to cut them out. So I'm going to put off the pink one off to the side, and I need to get my scissors. So once you have your scissors, we want to start to cut it out, but you want to make sure it is indeed dry before you cut it out. So on this one, my green leaves are still a little bit wet. Just going to go ahead and section these off and just cut out whichever one is a little bit more dry. Alright, that leaf looks pretty dry, so we'll go ahead and just cut that out. I want to cut away the pencil marks. I don't want to see the pencil marks. So you want to cut inside your line and then cut off your stem. There's a little bit of white there, so I'll just cut off a little more and put it off to the side. This one's still a little wet, so I'm going to hold off. And this one is dry, and this one still has just one little spot that's still a little bit wet. Well, actually both of them do. So cut inside your line. Alright, so we've got our hibiscus here in our leaf, and we need to cut out one more leaf. Alright, we've got two leaves. We've got our cutting here really quickly before we get a little too far of ourselves. I want to paint these now that they're a little bit drier. I want to paint the stem, so let's look at this one. Alright, so now those are just going to dry a little bit longer before we even start to compile these together. So I wanted to do an in-between because I wanted those to dry. So now back to cutting. So I'll just partition these out like I did the other ones. All right, so I have my pieces for both, and we do want to paint our inside first, but that's still a little bit wet. So let's just take a break because, you know, we've worked hard, so take a break. All right, you guys, so I poked holes into the middle of this. We want to stack them. This might be a little too big of a leaf, but I can trim it down. Anyway, I just took my scissors and I punched it through, and I'll show you with the yellow in a second. But before I do that, I wanted to just discuss, we want to paint a little rectangle because we want to wrap this around the base. So now that the base is dry, we just want to feed these through. So I'm going to, let's see, I think we'll do the 3-pointed one first, and then this 2-petaled one next. And you want to kind of give this a little bit of a space. So I'm going to just glue it into place right about here. So I want this to extend out a little, but I do want to run a little tiny bit of glue right at the base here. All right, so we'll just let that cure. I'm just going to set it off to the side and just let it sit for a bit. Well, I do want to get my underside. That's a little more cured, so I'm going to flip it over. Ouch. Careful not to burn yourself. Never fun. And we'll add a little bit of a stopper there. All right, I'm just gonna tilt this against something for now. All right, so put my leaves off to the side. You want to punch a hole into the middle of your flower shapes. Put this on the back side and this on the front side. You want to feed it through the 2 holes. And right about there's where we want it to stop. So we'll get a little bit of glue. Set that off to the side as well. Go back and pick up our other one, which should be a little bit more cured. And let's go ahead and paint our base. Now, I originally painted it to have the green, but I didn't know how far down it was going to go, so we'll go back over it. So I'm going to paint a little bit of white to kind of block it out. And to also fill in some of these at the tip. I'm going to paint it white first and then yellow, but we want it to coat pretty good, so all right, we're just going to put this off to the side and let this dry a little bit more. And this one should be pretty good at this point. And we're going to let this one dry. Actually, we're just going to let them both dry. So just let them dry and then we'll paint them yellow in a minute. Timing. All right, so we let them dry, but before we do anything to the middle, we want to paint the outside as well as the leaves. So go ahead and get your colors ready. And I started off with the yellow. I was a little depleted, so I needed more. And you can use really whichever brush you choose, but it will probably help to get the underlings before we get the ones that are on the top. So I'm just going to dip into my yellow and just paint the outside. Alright, and the paint should give it a natural curl, but we want this to dry a little, so I'll just let it sit over there. And we want to get our pink flower, but I want to wipe off a little bit of this yellow I got going on. So just wipe it clean. Alright, we're going to do the underside first, maybe a little bit redder. Alright, so we got the other one, and we want these to dry. Just like this one, so I'm just going to move this and let this open up and dry a little differently somewhere. Alright, I want to do my green leaves. I want to wipe this excess pink up and give myself a clean brush. Alright, so I got 4 leaves, and a clean brush. And we want to mix a color that like we mixed before. So I'm going to start off with green, a little bit of, start off with yellow and a little bit of green. Alright, we'll go ahead and just paint the stem first. Or at least on this one we'll try. We'll see what's better. Holding it, painting it. Alright, one down. We'll try it holding the stem. Alright, that felt a little bit easier, so hold the stem when you paint them. I'm going to make a little bit more. Alright, and we're going to let those dry, so we'll put those kind of off to the side, and I think my yellow one is a little bit drier. Oh no, that's still a little wet. Alright, it's probably a good time just to take a little bit of a break, and we'll let everything dry just a little bit more. Alright, so once these are a little drier, we want to take our rectangle that's green, and we want to use this to bind everything. So also you want to make sure that your glue gun is plugged in. I just did that. Alright, so we want to create some zigzag shapes when we cut this out. I'm just going straight down the middle. And this is what we're going to use to wrap around. So I think the yellow one is drier, so I'll just let the pink one sit a little longer. And it really just wants to lay that way. All right, so this is what I have. I want to flip it over, and I want to try to mush these together a little. There's parts that are still a little wet. I'm just impatient, I guess. So we want to take this and wrap this around. And we also want to glue it into place, but for right now, we're just going to go ahead and hot glue a couple pieces. So I've wrapped it around, and now I've unaccordioned it, and I want to add a little bit of glue. You want to be very careful not to burn yourself. I'm just going to use my scissors to rewrap. And then just use them to push down. I'm going to unwrap the other way. And let my hot glue gun get in there. Okay, so it's pretty secure around the outside with the hot glue. And now at that very tip or base, we want to add a little bit. I'm going to start on one side first and then the other. You're really pushing it in there. Okay. Then we want to get the other side. So add a little. Go back to the scissors. And just try to push it closed a little. I'm just holding it here so it cures just a little longer. And I'm just going to set this off to the side. So we'll go ahead and do that for this one. All right. I want to mush this down. And figure out where we want our paper to wrap. This one's a little easier. Okay, got a little tiny bit of ink on there. So well, I'll rewrap it and then we'll just repaint it. But I seem to need a little less, so I'm gonna just cut off a little space. All right, we'll just let this one cure and put this one off to the side. So now we can kind of unfold it. And as we unfold it, we can get some curve. pretty good base. So for this one, I think I want to paint it red in the middle. And we fixed it. All right, let's let that dry. Now this is cured a little bit. This one I want to be yellow. That's kind of where I was going with that. And now I have this hibiscus. I do want to glue a leaf. So I have 2 leaves. I forget which one was for which, but I guess it doesn't matter. I have 2 small ones and 2 big ones. We can glue it right on the outside. Alright, so there's 1 leaf, and I do want to glue another one on there. Ooh. Looks like my little petal is about to fall off. Alright, I'm gonna just add a little bit of glue. Try to get that to hold on. And I got it red again. Darn it. See, this is why you should let things just dry, because you rush them and then things like that happen. Alright, now I need another big one, so I will just grab this one and we'll glue it that way. Alright. I'm going to glue it in sections. I'm going to take this one and let it sit. Alright, so there's 1 hibiscus. And we'll just let that kind of lean. This hibiscus. And we want to do this little, oh goodness. This little leaf is very peculiar. I think I want to glue it right here before I get any farther because it's starting to rip. There we go. Much better. Alright, so we want to figure out where our leaves are going to go. This is probably a good spot for one of them. So let's go ahead and glue a little strip right here. Ouch, ouch, ouch. That felt terrible. Oh. Alright, just letting that cure. And there we have it. Hibiscus, made out of paper. Kind of a fun project, but you can make a little bouquet now. You can make more, you can make less, totally up to you. Bunch of different colors, but that is how you make a paper hibiscus. So, alright you guys, and there's the finished product. So that is how you make a hibiscus out of paper. I also have, and in my other video, I have how to make a butterfly. So you can make a paper butterfly, which are really fun and just kind of lively up any decor. Well, we have a butterfly and we also have a little bee. So we have this little bee, and these are all papercraft. Alright you guys, well if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, please like it, share it with your friends, comment if you want to see something else that I can create for you, or a fun class. But anyway, thanks for watching you guys. We'll see you in the next one. Have a great day.